designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Mies is considered the father of the modern skyscraper and modern architecture, buildings like this.
It's like the parking garage.
What do you guys think of this? Do you think it's interesting?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't, right? They think it's boring, it's not as fun as the Wrigley Building or other buildings around. But this is huge. Now, believe it or not, this style took up 30 years of the 20th century, from the mid-1950s until the 1980s. Mies once said, God is in the details, so while this building doesn't look detailed, if you walked around the plaza, you'd notice how the lines in the tiles line up perfectly with the mullions between those windows, those I-beams between the windows.
Why do you still have your hoodie?
Ahead of us, we have two towers. What do they look like to you?
Parking garages.
Some people call them the corn cobs. You can sort of see that,
Corn
right?
cobs.
These are called the Marina City Towers,
Oh my
built in
God, they do.
1964 by Bertrand Goldberg.
Those are beehives. They look like those
Goldberg was
statues
inspired
that
by
the
nature. He
buildings
once said, if there are no right angles in nature, there shouldn't be any in architecture. There are condominiums and apartments above the parking garages, and they're pie-shaped, and they're built around a central circular corridor inside. Now, if you live here, you don't expect to park your own cars, because parking attendants have to do that for you. I wouldn't want to do that, park my own car here.
Don't they?
Notice that Marina City is a lot bigger than just the two towers. This is 5 buildings in total, and this was called the city within the city. This included a bowling alley, a movie theater, a grocery store, ice skating rink, salon, a barber shop, a post office. Goldberg created this because he was a problem solver. He was like a civil engineer or urban planner like Daniel Burnham. The biggest problem Chicago had after World War II was urban migration. Nobody wanted to live downtown. They wanted to live in the suburbs. So Goldberg designed that to attract suburban blue-collar workers, the downtown Chicago area. Now, have any of you been on the Riverwalk on your left? Have you explored this thing? Have you walked around it? If you haven't, maybe check it. It's kind of cool, right? Now, the Riverwalk began construction in the late 1990s. We finished the last 2 sections a year ago. You can take the Riverwalk today from Lake Michigan, Great Lake, over there,
for a river bar.
to Lake Street at the far end. The Riverwalk is a part of that 1909 plan of Chicago by Daniel Burnham, thing Wacker Drive is a part of. Daniel Burnham once said, "Make no small plans, they have no magic to stir men's blood." Notice how big Chicago is? That's really thanks to Daniel Burnham. On the right, we see a building that some people would call a ground scraper, not a skyscraper. It's not tall the way a skyscraper would be. This is the Reed Murdoch Center. It was built in 1914. This was originally built as a produce warehouse. Today it's an office building with things like Encyclopedia Britannica and Whirlpool have headquarters here. Notice something strange with the building. There are 5 bays of windows on the right, but on the left of the clock tower there are 4. The building is lopsided, it's asymmetrical. The reason for this is that later, after it was built, this street, LaSalle, needed to be expanded. They widened it. So to accommodate the larger street, they took out one big section of the building on the left and then closed the building up.
Where? Which one?
Now look to the left, guys. We've got a building that was built in 2 parts. The left 2/3 of a black stripe you can see right in the front is the original building, built in 1927 by Graham Anderson, Probst & White, that architectural firm behind the Wrigley Building, and the right 1/3 with the bay windows is the addition completed in 1986 by another firm, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. So we call this thing the Builders Building. This is a 59-year collaboration between 2 of the biggest builders of Chicago's infrastructure in the 20th century. Look up at the top of this building on the right, DIRTT stands for Doing It Right This Time. That is a company that makes sustainable office interiors and office furniture. The employees call themselves
Chicago
dirtbags.
School.
Look to the right, we have the Merchandise Mart, limestone-clad building, built in 1930 by Graham Anderson, Probst & White.
Bridges.
The building here represents another style that is very popular called Art Deco. Art Decoratif. Notice the green spandrels between the windows. These are meant to act as pinstripes or racing stripes, and they're designed to take your eyes up vertically to the top of the building. Well, that's what Art Deco was designed to do, stress slimline verticality. Notice the features here. You've got abstract geometric shapes like chevrons at the bottom, fluted columns, and all those bronze medallions embedded all over it. Art Deco is a conversation. It's very expressive. Art Deco designers were talking about the modern industrial era, the machine era, the age of progress, science, industry, the Roaring 20s, if you know that. The Roaring 20s Art Deco. Well, at this point, you notice this river is getting wider. We're about to leave the main branch of the Chicago River and head down the south branch on the left. Now notice here the river splits from the main branch into the north branch and the south branches. This confluence where the river splits is called Wolf Point. Historically, this is where Chicago began as a township back in the early 1830s. Chicago was a city in 1837. Ahead of us, we have two new buildings that opened up late 2016. Ahead of us is a building that someone recently nicknamed the McDonald's Apple Pie Box.
All 6 minutes.
Or the Hot Pocket. The Hot Pocket building, right? That's River Point. And then look across Lake Street. Ahead of us, guys, you've got a building that looks like a golf tee. Or an arrow pointing upside down. Check out the base of that building. It's only 30 feet across. Isn't that cool? That's called 150 North Riverside Plaza, designed by Getch Partners. That arch at the bottom is called a parabola. There are two parabolas, one at the top, one at the bottom. Notice the bottom is beveled like a chisel. They did that because there are 7 train lines that pass underneath of and in front of the building. They run underneath and they go behind the golf tee. The arrow pointing upside down. The glass of River Point, the Hot Pocket building, is held up by steel tension cables.
That's awesome.
The frame of the building doesn't hold up the windows.
Like
Steel cables hold them up.
How do you build something
The glass
like
is
that?
acoustic glass as well. They're blocking out the sound from the L train that passes up here on Lake Street. 7 active trains pass underneath it, and we're also passing about 60 feet above the Blue Line subway. It's
Looks like a
passing underneath
pencil.
us right here.
Wow, that looks like a pencil.
Well, you've got 7 active train lines passing behind this building. In front is a 30-foot wide river walk. So this building's base is only 30 feet across. The way they support this building is what's called a core and outrigger system. You have an immense concrete core in the middle. It goes all the way to the top. Every floor has outriggers that then pull it inside, compressing it, keeping it there.
Yo, Jeffrey would love that.
The foundations of this building are what's called caissons. Caissons are foundational pillars. They're made with reinforced concrete. They're 110 feet long. They're driven down to bedrock level. There are 12 16-foot wide caissons in the foundation of this. Ahead of us is the Boeing building. You can see the logo there at the bottom, one at the top. The building here was completed in 1990 by Perkins and
I got a
Will.
pencil.
Originally built for Morton Salt, the salt company.
My diaper everywhere I go.
Morton left the building in 1999. 2 years later, Boeing came in after them.
Yoy.
And when you look up,
Truck.
it's a loud bridge.
When you look up, truck.
You're 96% water. You're among family at this point. Now look up. Notice those round things at the top. It's meant to look like a salt shaker for Morton Salt, the company who existed here to begin with.
It's meant to look like a dildo.
They left the building in 1999. 2 years later, Boeing came in after them. Now notice, guys, the south section has something at the top. They were trying to drive in columns beneath that south section in the late 80s to support the building over train tracks that run underneath it. The trains are too close together. There's no room to drive in columns. So the entire south section of this building had to be suspended.